IEEE Computer Society is the premier source for information, inspiration, and collaboration in computer science and engineering. Connecting members worldwide, the Computer Society empowers the people at advanced technology by delivering tools for individuals at all stages of their professional careers. Our trusted resources include international conferences, peer-reviewed publications, a vast digital library, globally recognized standards, and continuous learning opportunities. We are the home for computer science and engineering leaders across the globe.
Hi all, welcome to our CS Talks from the Computer Society Panama Section Chapter. My name is Franklin Ward and I will be hosting our president, Susan Kathy Land, as she will share with us her journey with IEEE. But first, I want to introduce our current Panama Section President, Mr. Julio Garcia. Julio.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sean todos bienvenidos a con este excelente panelista. Estamos muy agradecidos también para que esta participación de todos ustedes y también sean bienvenidos a estos inicios de los eventos de IEEE con Computer Society este año, una gran iniciativa que están llevando. Los que no conocen IEEE, sean bienvenidos a ser voluntarios y también colaborar con nosotros, participar en todos nuestros eventos en todas las áreas. Adicional, quisiera agradecerle a Susan. Thanks, Susan. We are very grateful to you. I am sure that many want to know about your experience in IEEE. Bueno, me gustaría cederle ya las palabras a nuestra anfitriona, nuestra gran presidenta de IEEE.
Okay, thank you, Julio, for your kind words. Now I have the pleasure to introduce Susan Kathy Land, our current president and CEO of IEEE. Susan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you can see my slide.
Yes.
It might take a second. Yes. Okay. I'd really like to thank both Franklin Ward and Julio Garcia for the invitation to speak today. It really is my pleasure. So I'm going to talk to you today about what IEEE has to offer, but really from a somewhat personal perspective. So this will be a little different kind of talk. By providing my insights from my personal journey with the IEEE, my path to the IEEE presidency, and this overview. I'm always asked sort of how I got to the IEEE president spot as a volunteer. So I put this talk together, but I wanted to do it in a way that would provide people with some insight into what volunteering has meant to me, and hopefully provide some inspiration to others. So I'm in my late 50s. I'm not going to tell you exactly my age, but looking back, it's been a journey, and hence the name of my talk, A Personal Journey, traveling from one place to another, taking a rather long time, passage or progress from one stage to another. So that's kind of the definition of a journey. And it's looking back, I've not arrived here by accident or without some effort. And that's important to remember for you young people out there, you young professionals. I've made some good choices, and these included aligning early with IEEE. Looking back, that was extremely important. A good choice made early on. So here's what I'm going to talk about, an overview. I'm going to have you hopefully think about where you are in your path as I go along. I'm going to talk about my career path, where I was when I met IEEE, what difference it made in my life. Hopefully get you to think about your personal goals, how it influenced mine. It gets you to think about where you might want to go in IEEE. Give you some options to think about, where I thought I was going in my career, where I ended up, and how the IEEE mission and vision can help you. All right, so at the bottom, I love this. We're all the sum of our experiences, our influencers, and the choices we make. And this is what makes us who we are. All right, so when I was starting out, this is sort of what I thought my career path might look like. You know, you graduate from college, you get your job, you get a promotion, you know, you get your dream job, and then you retire. Okay, this is what my career path really looked like, right? So it was kind of a mess, especially because I hit computer science when I graduated from college. I graduated from University of Georgia in the United States the year they got a computer science department. So you could say I had bad timing, but I really had great timing, because in the early 80s is when computer science and programming was a new field, and people were desperate. They were looking for programmers, anybody that understood computers, and I hit the field right at that time. I didn't have a degree in computer science, but I understood computers. And so that's how I landed my first job, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so I graduated from college. I had to go back and get some additional, you know, schooling after, but I changed jobs because, like, if you want to stay in development in computer science, or if you did when I was in, you know, in the field, you change jobs every 3.5 years. Because you didn't want to go into maintenance. I never wanted to go into software maintenance. It wasn't my thing. I wanted to stay in development. So the longest job I've had is the one I've had with missile defense, is where I am now, and I've been there almost 15 years, but in a variety of different jobs and positions. And so hopefully I'll retire in about 3 or 4 years. We'll see. I don't know. All right. So the one thing that I do want to state up front is that success is not instant. We live in sort of an instant culture. I talk to a lot of young professionals, and they want to know, how do I serve? How do I get on this committee? A lot of the IEEE level committees are very high level. People don't realize how competitive those committee positions are. I would say that you need to get some experience at the section level, at the region level, any type of opportunity you can to serve, take that opportunity, work in conferences. That's what I did. I built up, and you'll see, I built up over a long period of time, a lot of experience, sort of rose through the ranks. What's most important is that you need to build on your leadership experience within the organization, any organization, whether it be work or IEEE, so that you understand and you're prepared for the next role. And I'll talk about that more too, and you'll see. But it's at the bottom, you'll see, to make a decision, all you need is authority. And I'm sure you've seen people in management like this. But to make good decisions, you need knowledge, experience, and insight. Right, and those are the people that are prepared for the roles that they're leading in. All right, so who am I? So, you'll figure out my age now. I was born in 1963, and in 1985 is when I got my big break as a computer systems specialist at the Pacific Missile Test Center in California. So I graduated from college, and I went out in 1984, and I went out to California, from Georgia to California. And they were looking for people that could run these hardware in the loop computers, these big, massive, you see the picture on the screen. That's really what the lab looked like. And I was dealing with huge magnetic tapes and these bulky computer systems, working on VAX and HP systems that don't really exist anymore. But they didn't have a position in civil service for programmers or computer specialists. So I had to take a job as GS3 clerk I had to pass a typing test and then take that job for 30 days and then get in there and write my own job description. They knew I could work these computers, but I had to write my own job description. It was the first one of its kind at Point Magoo in the Navy as a computer systems programmer. And then I wrote my new job series, Computer Specialist, up to a GS11 after I'd been a computer systems programmer for 60 days. So that was my job. I was the only woman. There was another woman who was a mathematician in a different lab, and she was one of those human computers that you heard about in Hidden Figures. And so anyway, so that was my job, and I worked in the Standard Missile Lab, and it was the SM2. Now they're working on the SM3. My husband worked in the AMRAAM Missile Lab, and that he did HWL testing on the AMRAAM. So then I worked there. Then I worked at the Eglin Air Force Base, 46 Test Wing, on a variety of software products. That's a whole nother story. But worked there for about 12 years. And then that's where I met IEEE. I'll talk about that in a minute. While there, worked on another program called America's Army, which is a massive multiplayer online game. And then during that time, I also wrote some books on software process improvement and using IEEE software and systems engineering standards. You can see those books at the bottom of the screen because I got really tired of having to train my teams and trying to train the people in business development and the managers and convincing people that software engineering really was best practices, right? So, and I knew that IEEE had the best practices and that things like ISO 9001, CMMI, Lean Six Sigma could be applied and paired with those standards. So that's why I wrote the books. Then I moved to Huntsville, Alabama, where I was Northrop Grumman moved me to Huntsville to start a department, which was an interesting experience. I moved there. I had one programmer, no business contacts, and I had to fire the programmer because he couldn't program. But anyway, in 2.5 years, I had 25 million in business and a bunch of different programs. And then I left Northrop and I went to MITRE, which is a federally funded research and development center. You're basically an advisor to the government. And I was advising the government. I went back to my roots, missile development. And so I worked for missile defense and on a program that I can't talk about. And then I insourced to the government working for missile defense as a chief engineer for a re-architecture for command, control, battle management, and communications, which is basically the backbone for missile defense. It connects the sensors to the shooters, the radars to the missiles. And so I was the chief engineer for that. And it was a 1.2 billion 5-year program, which we delivered. And then I was the program manager for the next spiral, which also delivered. And now I have a new full-time job. In addition to being president and CEO, I'm a new program manager for foreign military sales for C2BMC. So that's what I'm doing now. All right. So when did I meet IEEE? So I was working at 46 Test Wing, and they had one product, which was flight performance software. And this thing exploded into a variety of products, combat flight stores, loading software, like 5 or 6 different products. But the bottom line is they had no software engineering. And this was in the day when they had floppy disk and people, there were nothing like an online software repository where you would check in and check out your code. You would bring in your floppy disk and people would try to merge the code. We were going from the days of the individual programmer to multiple programmers on, larger projects, and people were writing their code all over each other. It was, nobody understood requirements development, and we were trying to manage the requirements for multiple efforts and have set up configuration control boards and that kind of stuff, and test and verification. What was that? Nobody understood that at all. So, I had to set up all this rigor so that we could manage these larger efforts. And so that was really my job. So I went from being a programmer to doing that and getting a CMMI level 3 certified. So that was my role there. But I turned to IEEE Standards and they had these guidebooks. And the guidebooks for the software and systems engineering standards were really great. They described in practical terms what you needed to do to implement their standards. I found out that the Standards Association and the Computer Society, who manages the standard set, they were going to do away with the guidebooks because they had an issue of they were asynchronous. So they would develop the standard, then the guidebook, and then the standard and the guidebook, and they were having problems keeping the things up to date, and it was a lot of work. So I wasn't happy about this. So I went to at the time I thought IEEE, because I'm in computers and I'm a software engineer, I viewed IEEE as this ivory tower full of, engineering, electrical engineers who really didn't care about software. That was my view. And I went to this IEEE fellow who I thought was this, icon of, untouchability. And I said, look, Tom, what is IEEE doing? These are the only practical thing I've ever seen come out of IEEE, and they're doing away with them. And he said, well, you can go and you can tell them what you think. They want to hear from you. Why don't you put together a presentation and go to this International Software and Systems Engineering Symposium in Madrid? And I went, oh my gosh, okay, well, sure. And I was like, 29, I think, or 30, I don't know. So I put together this thing and I went to the conference, and I submitted it and it got accepted. And I went to present, and I remember being so afraid because the people who were like, Dick Thayer was there, and Dick Fraley was there, and Jim Moore was there, and all these people who were like the leaders in software and systems engineering, Paul Kroll, were in my audience. And I'm telling them that they don't know what they're doing. And instead of kicking me out, they asked me to conduct a survey over the internet, which was brand new. This is the 90s, early 90s. They said, conduct a survey for us, and we want to hear from our users. So I did 2 surveys over 2 years, and then they asked me also to be the publicity chair for their conference, which is what they always do to young professionals. If you're a young professional, you can identify with me. Please be our media chair. So they asked me to be their publicity chair, and I said yes. So I was the publicity chair for the conference. And so I worked with them on the conference, and then they asked me to participate in a working group, which you can do, and you don't have to be an IEEE member. So I was a volunteer for IEEE for 3 years before I joined. And the reason I joined IEEE is because I wanted to ballot on the standard that I was working on in IEEE. So sometimes we ask people to join IEEE before we ask them to participate. And sometimes we don't listen to people. And so I was very glad that the people there heard what I had to say and didn't turn me away, because I'm still around, and I did join IEEE, and I've been a member ever since. So that's how I met IEEE. So here's sort of my journey through IEEE. I began at the Standards Conference as a presenter, and that, it was a challenge from the guy I worked with. And I did find out that IEEE was not this sort of ivory tower. Now, there were challenges that I faced. There were people who did not receive me well because I was an electrical engineer, who didn't understand me because I was young. But, that was a super minority. And what I did is I just learned the domain. I learned the subject matter. I learned the standard. I was working in standards, and I made sure I understood, if you look on the right, you'll see all the different standards working groups in Computer Society. And so I just made sure I understood the subject matter and became an expert in that area. That was one of my goals. So I became the publicity chair for the conference, participated in a working group. As I kept getting invited to do things, I said, yes. And that's what you do. And so then I was on got asked to be the secretary for the Software Engineering Standards Committee. And then I was vice president of Computer Society Software Engineering Standards, and I became the vice president for all of Computer Society Standards. And then I was the vice president for Computer Society Conferences and second vice president of the Computer Society. And I really thought that would be my last job in the Computer Society or in IEEE, because I changed the business model for conferences from significantly. Everything was on TMFs on paper. It was before, and I went to John Big, who was president at the time, that campaign to get ICX. So that's when ICX was born, the first version of what we had online for conferences, because I did an audit of Computer Society conferences and saw that we were losing $1 million a year in revenue because of the way the business model was for Computer Society conferences. Communicated with all the conference chairs, explained to them how we were changing the model. We changed the model and it became profitable. But I really thought that that was sort of my last task, because it was I didn't think that people would really get what I was trying to do, but they did, and we were successful. And then I got elected first VP of the Computer Society, so it turned out okay. And then I was president of the Computer Society after that. So I guess what I'm showing here is that I had a passion for every step along the way here. I understood, I made sure, and there are lots of subcommittees and lots of things that I'm not showing on this slide, but what I made sure is that I understood the role when I was serving on each one of these areas. And these weren't like a year after year, this took a long time. And behind each one of these positions, there was a lot of other service that's not shown. And then after this, the Computer Society has two IEEE board division on both those back to back, which was great. Gave Computer Society for many years. I didn't really, I was president, really wanted to focus that we needed to sort of break in IEEE, stop. The Computer Society needed to start sending volunteers to IEEE and that they had with IEEE. It was not to the benefit of the society to play this isolationist game, and so that's what they've really been doing for the last years. So it's been really great for the society. It can't affect the policies that are enacted at the board if you don't have members there working to implement policies. On the USA board, wanted to see what that board was about. Vice president of technical activities in 2018, and that was the challenging role that I had on IEEE. Breaking people up. I can dial in. If I dial in, you're going to have to elevate me to hear me. If you give a second, I can dial in.
Okay.
Bear with me.
Don't worry.
I think it's because I have weather here. Just a minute, sorry.
Don't worry about it.
It just started, and I'm on a satellite. It just started pouring.
Welcome to web. Your attendee ID number house. You do not know your attendee number.
Okay. You should see me now.
Yes. Hello.
Look, phone number that
Yeah.
I looked for the dial.
Yeah.
Can you see it? It should be 256
Got it.
426 5900.
Got it.
All right. I muted my. Is that going to work, or is that going to be a problem? That's not going to work.
I don't think that's going to work.
Okay.
I'll just try this. I don't know how to dial in with,
Right now, we got you very good.
you got it? Okay.
At the
Hopefully
moment,
it'll
yes.
stay. Okay. I'll talk slower. All right. So, all right.
Thank you.
All right. So, the one thing I did want to show is that how IEEE did directly impact my professional career. You don't hear this a lot from people in industry. You hear this a lot from people in academia because a lot of their promotions are tied directly to how they publish or present at conferences. But what I did is I presented briefings to my leadership in companies about my IEEE work. So when I presented at a conference or when I got leadership roles in IEEE, I informed my management. So you can see on the left side, you know, and this is just as I went up through the Computer Society, you know, to second VP, how I went up in the company and this was pretty rapidly. And I became I was a Northrop Grumman Fellow in the IT sector, and that's 120,000 employees, and they only have like 13 fellows. And tech director. No, I also, my work at the company played into that as well. But I was, and also the tech director for Huntsville operations. But it's important for people who are in industry to let their companies know, to build benefits briefings so that their leadership understands how they're improving, you know, what they're doing, what they're contributing, and also to bring back that technical knowledge. You know, I was considered the resource for software and systems engineering standards in my company, both at Northrop Grumman and at MITRE, you know, in addition to my day job. So it's important that you let people know that you have that connection and you are that resource. So I show this slide a lot. People, and I love to hear, because when I was talking to Franklin earlier before the call started, he said, you know, people don't realize, you know, IEEE is connected but not integrated. And I show this slide a lot, and it's on this slide. We are getting better at connecting things, but we do have a ways to go. But people don't realize the depth and breadth of IEEE. I know when I started and I came up through the Computer Society, I thought the Computer Society was it. I thought it was, you know, the end all of IEEE. When people start in the section of the region, they think that's it, right? But there's a big world out there in IEEE. There, you know, if you're in the US, you know, there's a lot, and even if you're not, there's a lot of career resources available. There's the Standards Association, and I'll show a slide on some of the standards projects available. And remember, again, you can work on those for free. I'll tell you about that in a minute. If you don't have to be a Standards Association member to work in standards. We have tons of humanitarian activities, educational activities, which I'm very excited about. We have a whole pipeline now. Conferences and events. technical activities, and I'll talk more about in membership and affinity groups, and I'll talk all about these. So here are the standards, and they're over 1,100 active, new, and revised standards, and over 600 under development. And under development means that the working groups are working. So if you're interested in standards, you know, it sounds like a dry area, but it's really, you'll meet some really interesting people, and it's really evolving, groundbreaking work. So because they really lay the groundwork for normalization of new activities. So it's important, right? So think of 802, right? There's a new area right now, ethics. Ethically aligned design is a whole new area. So, you know, the FireWire standards, and all of these are active. So if you're interested, go out there and look at the standards site and see if there's an area in standards that you're interested in. And again, you don't have to be a member of the Standards Association to participate in the working group, only to ballot on the standard. And you can contact the working group chair to become a member of the working group if you're interested. They're always looking for people to help. I always talk about technical activities. People, you know, don't realize the breadth of IEEE's field of interest. When I had an argument with my husband, who's a very wonderful, I've been married 37 years, electrical engineer, and you know, who argues with me about IEEE's field of interest. And I say, no, I show him the field of interest. Then all I have to do is bring up the technical activities and say, look, you know, we have an education society. We have a communication society. We have, you know, a broadcast technology society, a power and energy society. There is something for everyone in IEEE, and some of these societies represent basically, they are the largest footprint of this in the world, right? So if you join some of these, they really are the organization leading this area of interest in the world. So it's a good place to be. And if you don't like those, those cost money. Some are very low. They're $10. Technical communities are free. They're free to add to your membership. And these are areas of emerging technology. If you don't see one here that you like, you can create your own. There are some rules to creating them, but you can create your own. And these, you know, are really, these are emerging all the time, right? So you can see some of these, and if you want to look at and see the details or see how to join, you can go to IEEE.org, future directions. But these are really exciting areas. Also, we have technical councils, which I think are great. These are also free, but why these are really great is that these mimic societies, but they, in leadership, they have ACOMs, they have a seat on technical activities. So, but they're smaller. So, and they're free. So you can join these and really sort of accelerate your growth, your leadership growth within technical activities. And they're really looking for, some of these are really looking for leaders. So here's the pipeline I was talking about, and I'm super excited about this because we just added pre-university this year. That was one of my initiatives, was STEM. So we had a lot of STEM stuff out there in IEEE. Like we had a lot of post college education out there last year. We bundled all the ILN stuff, IEEE Learning Network, last year, and created the ILN, where you can go and take, you know, courseware, right? Professional development. But this year, we have created a whole new area that gathered up all the stuff we already had, but created a bunch of new stuff for K through 12. And it's for students, teachers, parents, and kids. And it's just wonderful because now we cover, right, the whole, you know, kindergarten through you know, I guess, you know, life fellow or life member. So that's what we're trying to do, is cover the whole life cycle of technologists. And it's very exciting. So go out there and look at the Tri-Engineering portal, is what it's called. Look at the IEEE Learning Network, and also check out if you're interested. Sorry. We also have the HKN, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, which is the Honor Society. I mean, it does great things for some of our students in university programs. So IEEE has a big range of humanitarian activities. Some people are not interested at all in humanitarian activities, but some people only join IEEE to serve in site or to support the foundation in their humanitarian work, or to support Smart Village, or PES's Empower a Billion Lives, or the USA Move, which is a Region 3 activity, but which is expanding internationally. And you can find out more about these at IEEE.org, Doing Good. And these are some amazing programs. So just think, if you are, and the reason I talk about these is, you know, I started out in standards, and then I went conference, then I went to standards, then the Computer Society, and I've worked in educational activities, right, with this STEM idea. I've worked in the history committee. We did a program this year that I've been supporting. I've done humanitarian activities with MOVE. I'm a big MOVE supporter. So I've worked in local Huntsville section, and I've worked at the region. I was a region XCOM member. There's a lot of stuff that y'all don't know that I've done, but my point is that if you feel like you're stuck, or if you're interested, you want to do something, IEEE is a big, big organization, and you can find a place to volunteer, and you can find a place to fit in. There are, the Center for Leadership Excellence provides some great training. You can check it out, and the link is there. And also the volunteer portal is a new tool. If you are interested in volunteering but don't know where to look, they post opportunities for volunteers, and it's volunteer.ieee.org. And I'll send these slides to Franklin, so he'll have all these links. And also, you can look in Collaboratech. If you're not on Collaboratech, go to IEEE homepage, and there's like a little Collaboratech symbol on the right-hand side. Go there, and you can network with all kinds of people that'll help you figure out, you know, new volunteer opportunities. Also, for young professionals, the VOLT training program kicks off in September. Great opportunity. If you need a recommendation, you can contact me. I'm sure Franklin would give you a recommendation, but it's a great way to kickstart your leadership training that will help you in MGA if you're interested in that. So what were my personal goals when I started out in IEEE? Well, one was to become a better speaker, because I will never forget, you know, every time I always say, it's there's two things, and Brene Brown is a woman who writes books that I read, but she says, okay to be nervous, but not okay to be scared. And people are people. Well, I was scared to death every time I used to get up and speak in front of any kind of audience. You know, I used to have to go in front of people in the Navy. I would have to go in the Air Force, but I'm not scared anymore. And IEEE did that for me. So one of my goals was to become a better public speaker. One of my goals was to become an expert in software engineering. And that was because I was sick and tired of staying up till 1 and 2 in the morning, me and my teams, and not delivering software that was good, on time, and within schedule. And so that's why I wanted to become an expert. And I think I've achieved those goals. And then I wanted to publish some texts, and I did that thanks to IEEE and John Wiley. And I wanted to earn a software master certification, and did that with the help of the Computer Society, because they developed one. And then I wanted to maintain my company's support along the way, and I did that. I still do that. You can see, you know, I give benefits briefing still to this day to missile defense and LOE, level of effort projections, right? So how did IEEE influence my career and goals? Well, I got promoted faster and I got better money. I mean, I outpaced my husband who has a PhD, and I made more money than he did until, you know, he just caught up with me recently. And that's because I insourced to the government, right? And at the government, you get certain pay scales, right? So I insourced topped out, and he's topped out. So that's how he caught up. But yeah, you know, all's fair in government pay. But so technical growth, I really had an edge because I was hanging out with the experts, right? You know, when I can call up Dick Thayer, or I can call up Jim Moore, who's still a great friend of mine today, and ask them, hey, we've got this problem, or hey, they're not listening to me. How can I get through to these knuckleheads? You know, they helped me many, many times. And I could always say, I can tell you this is true because I'm sourcing IEEE information, right? It's peer reviewed, it's the best, you know, it's the fact, Jack. And personal growth, my soft skills, my communication, my teamwork skills were better. Everybody can use that, right? Soft skills are incredibly valued these days, more so than technical skills. And I can tell you that. You can do your own research on that. And then leadership development as well. But at the bottom, I was empowered and emboldened by the technical clout and peer network provided by IEEE. That's a very important thing for all young professionals, I think. So you need to think about what are your professional goals, or what are your personal goals. It's important to set goals. And if you see on the right, there's this thing called SMART, and you can Google it. It's a way to set goals. You make sure they're SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And it's just good. It's a good way to do that so that you don't forget about the goals you're setting. And, you know, think about if you set a goal to speak at one conference here, where you'll be and where your CV will be in 5 years if you do that. And then, you know, maybe it's to gain a skill or to become an expert in something or to add a couple people to your network, those types of things. You know, they don't have to be terribly high reaching goals, right? When I started out, my first goal in IEEE was just to get through that first conference and not get booed off the stage. You know, just to get my paper accepted. That, and then, you know, then I set, you know, a little more goal, another goal, right? So, and then examine your journey with IEEE. Where are you on your path? You know, what are your personal goals? And figure out, take a moment to think about what types of personal goals you want to set and begin setting them now. My years of membership at IEEE have reinforced for me the importance and relevance of professional associations. There is a significance in being part of a group of people with a shared purpose that goes beyond one's personal interests or your current career. And the one thing I do want to say is that no matter how much effort I've put into IEEE, what I've gotten back out is multiplied tenfold. But if you want to be engaged with IEEE, you have to put forward some effort, right? You have to self-nominate or get somebody to nominate you for a position. You have to figure out what you want to do, what your area of interest is. And I still remember that initial conference. It was not a comfortable experience. So you have to put yourself out there. And I'm calling on you today to make a connection that might influence someone else's path. Share your personal story. Show someone else how they can get involved. We are here because we find value because of our relationship with IEEE. I'm here because of the sense of camaraderie, and, you know, help it helps bolster our efforts to build strong partnerships and cooperation worldwide. You know, we're here for the mission and vision. We believe in IEEE, but, you know, it takes all of us to share our personal stories so that we can share that sense of enthusiasm with others. You know, just ask someone to become a member, ask them to get involved, ask them to share your sense of mission and purpose. So that's my talk, and I hope it was I hope it was worthwhile, and I'll stop sharing if there are any questions. And I hope it wasn't too chopped up. I'm sorry for the storm here.
No, it wasn't. It was great. A great source of inspiration. I can relate to a lot of that. I don't have 30 years in IEEE myself. I have less than a year, and I decided to volunteer as a vice chair in Computer Society in Panama, and also in IEEE temps in the blockchain committee. So I know what you're talking about. And I spent a lot of time with our students. I think it's important. So I had a question for you. What advice can you give our student members? They're really important for us, but what advice can you give them specifically?
These are postgraduate or pre-grad, you know, undergraduate?
Pre-grad.
So my advice is to get involved in IEEE, right? So that's my first advice. And then my second advice, you know, we cut the membership in half for students last November, and we're going to keep it cut in half. So that promo code is ongoing. The other thing that I have challenged MGA to bring forward this year, I put an ad hoc in place, is because I've heard from students all over the world, is that when they graduate, they have a really hard time with the jump from student membership to full membership, the cost. So what I've challenged is for them to bring another promo code so that there is a because we've been doing a study. We study things to death in IEEE, and I'm sick of it. So what I want them to do is bring, I'm done. You know, if you show the benefit, you see it for 2 years, then bring me something that's going to be implemented. So I want them to bring me a promo code because it's easier to implement promo codes where they graduate, they pay a smaller incremental the first year, another, like they graduate up to that full increment, that full payment over 3 years, so that they're not hit with that full $150 or whatever it is. And then we're also, IEEE serves 160 countries. 140 of our countries qualify for the e-membership, which means that our members make less than 15K, you know, US salary. But the students are not discounted. So we've got to make that equitable. And so they're bringing me a proposal to reduce the student membership permanently in those countries as well.
Great. That's
but
great.
my advice is basically to stay active, even if they're not, like I said, there are ways to participate in IEEE without paying. Stay connected. You know, even if you can't pay, stay connected. You know, the downside is that when you're my age, you'll say, you know, I didn't have those 3 years on my membership. Well, okay, fine. And there are certain things you can't do. You can't run for certain offices. You can't have certain, you know, responsibilities. You can't apply for certain things if you're not a member. But I would stay involved. We should not exclude people. You know, IEEE should be the enabler, the mentor. We should not exclude participation just because somebody's not a member.
Got it. That's why I talk about IEEE Collaboratec. I think it's a great platform. You don't need to be a member of IEEE to sign in.
Exactly.
In the same note, I want to know from you why being a mentor is important.
Why mentor?
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of mixed on mentors.
Okay.
Being a mentor is important if you have the right mentor. Sometimes mentors try to shape people into becoming like mini-me's, and that's not great. So I really like the peer mentor approach, where you have a really strong peer group. Um, that way you kind of get molded by many opinions rather than one strong opinion. I don't know. I kind of like to look at the research on where mentoring is going. Having a mentor on collaborative, I think, is good. So, some mentors are good. Some mentors are bad. I think sometimes young people stay with a mentor that's maybe not the best for them, and they don't know to say no, or the mentor might have too much control. So I think the collaborative mentorship is good because it's not it's not a controlling mentorship. Mentorship in companies, I think, are dangerous. Mentorship in universities, I think, are dangerous. Mentorship in IEEE, I think, is safe. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Of course. I agree with that.
Mentorship without control is good.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to know how you see how IEEE could help increase awareness on global issues. It's kind of a big
Well,
question.
we stay out of
I'm
we
curious.
stay out of politics. So we
Good.
we stay out of politics.
Mhm.
We have to, because if we didn't, we would become a different type of nonprofit. We're a technical, professional organization, not a political organization. So we increase awareness on technical issues, and we have a lobbying as separately chartered. We have policy chartered arms of IEEE, global public policy. We have a global public policy group in IEEE that makes statements on global public policy, and we have the USA public, the policy that influences in Washington, but they're separate from the other part of IEEE. They're separately chartered, and we keep them separate. But what they do, for example, what IEEE USA does and the global public policy in Vienna, what they do is they inform policy shapers or leaders. If you pass this law, this is the technical impact, right? We don't take a political stance on some controversial issue.
Clear.
That's the difference.
That's a big one. Also, I want to commend you and the team because I attended the Section Congress, I think is the name. It was amazing. The amount of information, it helped me to get to know IEEE better. I think Julio mentioned to me that before it was only the presidents of the sections attending. And it's great that it was open up to everybody. It was great. So on that note, how is IEEE increasing diversity? But, diversity have different angles, geographic, profession. I want your thoughts on that because I think you're doing a great job trying to bring it in.
So I'll take you back to how it kind of got started. And I was vice president of technical activities, and Andrea Goldsmith came to me and said, I want to start a women in engineering or a women's group in TAP. And I said, no, we need to do if we're going to do anything like that, it needs to be diversity and inclusion for gender, women, but regional, because IEEE is a global organization, and it needs to support our statement on, you know, we have a code of conduct and we have a code of ethics, and it needs to support those, because we're a global organization, and we already have women in engineering that I fully support and work with all the time, you know, but we have the, and look around at our committees, you know, at IEEE, and you don't see the diversity geographically for regions 1 through 10. You are now more, but you know, it's a great thing to say we need more women, and I'm not downplaying that, but I've always worked in male-dominated industry, you know, for, you know, my first job, I was the only woman, right? And I have a whole talk I give about it. It's called When Computing Was Women's Work. And I tell some funny stories. You know, I live my life for humor, I guess, but if you have, it doesn't matter your gender. If you're in technology, if you have the smartest idea, and that's what we should tell young girls or young boys or whoever. If you have the smartest idea and you're at the table with other people, it doesn't matter who you are. If you are from Latin America, if you are a woman, if you are from China, if you have the smartest idea and they need that answer, your idea wins. And you are the star of the moment, right? That's what matters. And that's what we should tell people. Now, what's wrong is that we all have implicit bias, and we all migrate to people who speak our language and who look like us and who we know. And that's what we have to work against. And we have to work against implicit bias in our materials. And I'll give you, what really struck home to me was when somebody brought to my attention our senior member elevation materials, which we fixed. But because our senior member committee was comprised of people from the US, the senior member materials used to be set up so that it had bachelor degree, master's degree, PhD. But so many countries are not, you know, they have 5-year and then PhD. So that was a barrier to entry for many people when they were trying to apply for senior member elevation. Well, come on. You know, that's the type of implicit bias we would not have if we had diverse committees developing those forms. And that's what we need to work against. So how we're doing away with it is we're taking voluntary metrics and tab. We have an IEEE ad hoc right now, but we're in November. Andrew's bringing a motion to the IEEE board to make that a permanent committee on diversity and inclusion. We're going to have an annual diversity report that will report the metrics across IEEE on a website that will be available to all members.
Wow, that's great news. Great news. For me, I mean, it's been a journey. It's been satisfying. There's a lot to be discovered. I mean, attending these events like the Section Congress or Regional R9 Congress, I mean, I made friends with people in Region 8. I connected with Costas about the Vitality presentation he did because I didn't know about it. And I was curious about it and we talked about it. I mean, I would say that the first step would be reach out, be there, volunteer. That's why we always use the hashtag volunteering matters, because it does. What do you recommend for students that want to be in computing? Like, what can they read? What books right now could they go to if they're interested in things like software development?
Well, I recommended a good book for you.
Yeah, the same one.
If they're interested, people ask me what field should they go into if they're interested in computer science, and I say cyber. Cybersecurity is the top paying, can't find enough people. And if they're interested in that, there's a book called "This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends." What is it? Something for cybersecurity, but it's a great book. It's very interesting to read, and it's all true, and it's why you should go into cybersecurity if you're interested at all. Especially given all the news lately, but and plus you'll know stuff that nobody else knows. It's like the super secret world of stealth. But yeah, it's spooky world. What to read if you're interested? I don't know. Lots of programming books, I guess, and lots of I don't know what I ever read. I was too busy programming. I was with our languages. I was trying to keep up. Our languages, I started on freaking Forth and Fortran, and I mean, I don't even remember I looked back at one of my early performance reviews, and I didn't even recognize the languages. I was like, "What is this?" One of my very early. I was like, "What language was I programming in?" But I was always trying to catch up and learn a new language, and so I was always reading programming books, which is so boring, you'd think, but I love, it was my job.
That's true. Susan, I cannot thank you enough for all your support, for everything we put out in social media, being here, speaking to us. We hope to have you again. We'll talk about a different topic, but we would love to have you again.
Funny. Yeah, so if you have me back, I promise my other talks are funny, and I will reserve. I go to a hotel here, so I won't break up.
No, that's okay.
I'll get them to reserve the hotel, so I promise it won't be choppy.
Any final message to our audience, Susan?
Just, share. I think for many years, we've always said, get somebody to join, and it's not about joining. It's about engaging people. And letting them know, if you really do love this wonderful organization, and I do, it's been great for me, then that's what you should share, and just invite them to participate in some way. And if you want to participate and become more connected with IEEE, then figure out a way to do that. There are so many opportunities. I'll send this briefing to Franklin, and he can share it, but there are ways to get more connected, especially now that we have the volunteering online opportunities.
Thank you very much, Susan. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Look forward for more events. The next one, we'll have one on June 25th for APANAC. And then on June 26th, that's a Saturday, we have a blockchain and cryptocurrencies event. Make sure you look it up in VTools and attend. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.